Hello, Mizzo here. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. Check this out. Okay, so I'm at my mom's house because remember she's having surgery. And I thought about doing a PowerPoint slide for this, but I was like, oh, I point to things when I do this. It's so much better on a whiteboard. And I was like, Tiff, we don't have anything that's like a whiteboard, do we? And she was like, remember you bought that thing for mom at that garage sale? Okay, so my mom always says, any words of wisdom? And I found this at a garage sale and it has stickers and paint on it, and we're totally gonna use it. If you didn't think I was excited about being a teacher before, you know for sure now. I'm so excited. Okay, so today, right now, we're gonna talk about persuasion, and in terms of like why we persuade and how we persuade. So you've watched the video on modes of persuasion, and so you know the idea of ethos, logos, and pathos. But I think, so I used to just kind of teach that and be like, that's persuasion, you got it. And then I realized that wasn't enough, right? So why am I teaching? Why are we ever trying to persuade someone? What are we trying to do? We're trying to make change. That's what we're trying to do. So whenever you're persuading, whenever persuasion is happening, you're trying to make change. That's what is trying to happen, okay? So now the question is, what am I trying to change, right? What am I trying to change? And usually people's answer here is, I'm trying to change someone's opinion. That's what people, right? Usually when we're thinking about persuasion and we're thinking about change, usually the concept of opinion comes up. All right, here's the rant. Ready? I hate this. I don't think this means anything. What is an opinion? What is an opinion? You've heard that famous saying, right? Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. Think about what an opinion is. It's a thought, it's a feeling, right? So usually when we're trying to persuade someone, what we're actually thinking about trying to change happens on 4 different levels, okay? So think about, like, if I'm talking to someone about some big controversial issue, right? If I'm talking to someone about gun control or pro-life or economy and taxes or even gender, right? I talk to people all the time about gender, right? And what am I usually tapping into? If I'm going really deep into something, persuasion deals with people's values, right? That when we go way down to the depths of it, we're talking about values, right? If you think about something you have a very strong opinion on, it's usually because it's connected to something you value. Something as simple as my partner loves baseball. And he, persuades me to go to baseball games because he loves baseball. I don't give a crap about baseball. I do not value the ball, the ball. But I value my partner, and my partner values baseball. He's got a tie to his childhood. He grew up watching it on TV. His whole family is from Chicago, and they all love the Cubs. So, like, he values baseball. Does that make sense? Connected to values are beliefs. I wish you were all here. Beliefs. Mizzo trying to spell all by herself. Ugh. The pandemic cannot end soon enough, can it? Okay, beliefs, right? So if I value, let's see if we can use something a little more. So like, I value inclusion, right? I value inclusion. I think all different types of people and bodies should be included. And because I value inclusion, I believe that you should use whatever name or pronouns someone says they want you to use, right? So if someone says, my name is Banana Cakes, and I want you to say Zizem Zer when you use pronouns for me, I would go, okay, sounds good. Because I believe they should determine that. But there's lots of other people who value traditional, naming gender binaries. And so they would believe that you only use he or she pronouns. Does that make sense? And that everybody fits into that. Okay? So I've got values, I've got beliefs. We now get into attitudes. Should have practiced spelling all these. Okay, I'm doing okay. All right. We now get into attitudes, right? So if I have a value, right? So if I value inclusion, and then that belief that we should use pronouns, right? My attitude towards people is going to be positive, right? Where if someone has the belief that I, only should use he or she pronouns, if someone says, I want you to use they, them, their, I might have a negative attitude about that, right? And then that, you ready for this? This is so cool, connects to behavior. Now this I know how to spell, I just wrote the wrong letter. Behavior. So watch, we'll do all of this. So if I value inclusion, I'm going to have a belief you should use whatever pronouns someone asks you to use and the name that they attach to themselves. Therefore, my attitude, if someone asks me to do that, will be a positive reaction, and I will behave by using the pronouns they asked for. But if I value traditional gender binaries, and I believe there's only he and she pronouns, my attitude, if someone asks me to use a different pronoun like they, will be negative, and I may not do it, right? I may use whatever pronoun I want to use instead of what they're asking me. Isn't that cool? And look, there's no room for opinion. Opinion in so many ways connects to all of these. When we're saying opinion, we're using kind of a shorthand as to where we sort of align on this scale, because you can see how an opinion is developed by a combination of all of these. And you can also see how these connect in terms of like my behavior influences my attitudes, influences my beliefs, influences my values, and it goes the other way. So I've shown it the other way, but like think, I've heard a lot of people say, I always used to value construction. So like nature versus nurture, they'd say, nurture, right? And I always believed that it was all about socialization. And so my attitude was that, it wasn't about being born a boy or a girl. It was about, how we socialize boys and girls, right? And then my behavior was I would socialize all bodies. I wouldn't play into gender stereotypes. Well, I have heard people say, I believed this and I valued it this way until I had children. And then they'll say, I had children, so I had a behavior or an experience, right? I had children, and because of the way they acted, that changed my attitudes, which shifted my belief, which slightly changed my value. Now, you could have the same value, right, and just shift your beliefs. So I'll talk, so let's say you have someone who is pro-life, and because they're pro-life, they believe that you should not have any kind of abortion or surgery to remove a fetus. And then that you see that impacts their attitudes around pregnancy, reproductive rights, etc. And then their behavior, not only will they probably never have that surgery, but in our culture, they would then tell other people or protest or support legislation that dictates reproductive rights, right? I've often heard of people changing their belief so that they used to be pro-life and they believed they were against abortion, right? And then they will have a friend who goes through it, or they'll go through it themselves, or something will happen where, so their behavior changes. Really, this one targets belief, where they used to believe that you shouldn't have an abortion, and then they were put in circumstances where they understood it to be justified. And the value doesn't change. They still value life, but they contextualize differently, or that value changes, whereas instead of only focusing on the fetus or the baby's life, they now value or include the woman's life. Does that make sense? And you can see how that value stays the same, but if it shifts who it's applied to, the belief is going to change. If I am pro-life, but my value expands to include women's bodies, then my belief might change that they would have more control over what happens to their body. My attitude then around reproductive rights shifts to be more inclusive of different options, pro-choice. You see how those are connected? And then my behavior is I might stop yelling at people, or I might change my own personal behavior. So lots of different ways that's connected. Isn't this cool? And look, opinion is over there. Sad face because there's just nothing for him to do, okay? So now I'm going to rant about opinion just for a second. Opinions are just like things it's like opinions don't have any applicable value to someone else. That's how I think of opinions, okay? Whereas values, beliefs, attitudes, and behavior, you can see how those connect into our social structure of joint meaning. So I have an opinion that the Bee Gees are awesome. Do you know who the Bee Gees are? I love the Bee Gees. They're amazing. You probably know the song Stayin' Alive. That's probably the song you are most familiar with. But I would say expand that. There are so many good Bee Gees songs, this one being one of them. And I love the Bee Gees. They're a disco band. And I believe firmly that when the Bee Gees come on, like in the grocery store or on the radio, that it's like the universal creator saying to me, "You're special and I love you." Or whatever you believe. That the world and the universe thinks I'm special. Okay. So my opinion is that the Bee Gees are amazing. If I was going to persuade you that the Bee Gees are amazing, who cares? Who the heck cares? Who cares that I think the Bee Gees are amazing? Okay? It just doesn't matter. The only way you're ever going to get by on this is if you have such strong ethos, right, that you can get by with your opinion. This is the 'cause I'm the mom argument. Did your parents ever say, do this, and you said why, and they said, 'cause I'm the mom? Like, you have to agree with my perspective because I'm the mom, I'm the dad, right? That doesn't fly in argumentation, right? Like, it can work sometimes. I think we're seeing it with Trump right now, that his supporters follow whatever he does because he's Trump. Like, his ethos only with his supporters, right? Anything he says, any opinion he has, doesn't need to be justified or backed up, doesn't need to connect to one of these. In fact, oftentimes is very violating to people's values, beliefs, etc. There's a lot of really good articles about how it's surprising how many Christians and evangelicals follow Trump because the values in those doctrines don't match what Trump is doing and saying. But Trump has an ethos with people, and so do you see what I'm saying? That's not a strong thing to rely on, because even if you can persuade people using it, it's often not very ethical. It's often not very trustworthy in terms of how I get someone to buy my opinion. I instead want to be thinking deeper about how something is connected to values, beliefs, attitudes, behavior. Okay, so watch this. So instead of persuading you that the Bee Gees are amazing and you should love them, right? Who cares if you love them or not? Instead, I want you to listen to them. See how that's behavior? And now we've moved away from opinion. I want you to listen to them because I value disco, right, or 70s music, and I believe that it influenced a lot of other music that came after it, and therefore I have a very positive attitude toward 70s music. And so I would argue that if you listen to a little bit, that might influence how you think of other music or how you might enjoy it. Now, I don't care if you love it or like it or whatever, but I believe that you should consume it, right? I could argue to experience it based on behavior, and of course connected to these other ones, right? Um, this often comes up when we talk about movies, right? And it's like, yeah, you should see fill in the blank movie. My partner's never seen The Sound of Music. I'm always like, you're gonna have to watch it eventually. It's a classic, right? We're gonna show it to our kids. It changed. It's about history and it changed movies, and like I have all of these arguments. And yeah, my opinion is I really like The Sound of Music. We grew up watching it. It's a family favorite, right? And I might be able to pull an ethos card as the mom to say, Mom loves this, so we're watching it, right? Do you see how that is a flimsy sort of persuasive ethos argument? I keep talking about opinion and ethos. I should write ethos up here since I have this cool board, huh? But that's not going to get you super far, right? It's a lot more strong to say, well, this is how many people, have watched this movie, have valued this movie, right? And this is how it connects to history in terms of the story it tells about World War II. And I believe Julie Andrews is one of the greatest singers and actresses of all time, right? And I have lots of support for that, right? So you see how I can be navigating these in terms of persuasion, yeah? So, as we're thinking about persuasion, it's always helpful to kind of assess, what am I trying to get my audience to shift here? And how am I going about doing that?